What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Stu Hines Show. On today's episode, I'm joined by Packers superfan Tony Gazza. How you doing today, Tony?
I'm doing good, Jordan. Thank you for having me on, and it's always a pleasure.
We have so much to talk about, today. Really glad you're able to join the show. Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay. Russell Wilson gets traded to Denver. Khalil Mack gets traded to the Chargers. Carson Wentz gets dealt to Washington. So many moves, and free agency hasn't even officially started yet. I would say, some people thought there were going to be lots of moves this offseason, but I don't think anybody could have possibly predicted this much moves happening so quickly so far. But before we kind of talk about the NFL, I'll talk a little bit about wrestling on the show. And, there was some big news coming out of AEW, just on Wednesday. That was AEW signed Jeff Hardy, and they also signed Paige Vanzant. So, Tony, what are your kind of thoughts on AEW's signings with Jeff Hardy and Paige Vanzant?
Well, first of all, great signings because you got two big names, and names draw an audience, right? Paige Vanzant, let's get started with her. She's very attractive, very successful in mixed martial arts, and now bare knuckle boxing. She's a killer, man. I mean, this girl is a world-class athlete, and I'm glad they got her because she's a big name, big social media influence. And not only that, her husband also is a mixed martial artist, bare knuckle boxer. So I think it's a great signing by Tony Khan. You got to look at Jeff Hardy now. I'm very happy for Jeff Hardy as a human being because he was dealing with substance abuse issues. He was at rock bottom. WWE got rid of him because of that. And you see him on TNA wrestling. He was wrestling intoxicated, and they got rid of him in the middle of the match. They stopped the match, and they said, hey, you're intoxicated, and we're going to cut you off. So they got rid of him. And to see where him and Matt Hardy have come from their rock bottom to now, I mean, it's night and day difference. And I'm just happy that Jeff Hardy gets another opportunity to fulfill his wrestling because he is a big icon. I mean, WWE world champion, multi tag team champion. I mean, this guy's once in a lifetime generational talent. And to see him wrestling, I watched that, believe it or not. I watched him perform intoxicated, and it was so sad because that was a childhood icon, and to see him hit rock bottom, I mean, it was hard to watch. But I'm happy that Tony Khan has signed these two because you look at the other signings, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan. So I mean, you got to look at all these signings. I mean, Big Show, Mark Henry. I mean, he signed great talent. I mean, I know Chris Jericho, how that went, and then Cody Rhodes and Gold Dust. I mean, they're signing big names to this promotion, and I think they're the only real competition for the WWE right now.
And it's crazy because it's like when AEW started, a couple of years ago, I don't think anybody possibly could imagine they would get this many big names. Like when you start off with, Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho, I mean, you can't, in my opinion, I don't really think you can barely get bigger than Jericho. Maybe Cena, The Rock, and Steve Austin. In my opinion, that's about it. But when you look, what?
Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan. Like when you get some of those like guys people who might not have watched wrestling in like 10 to 15 years, you get one of those guys, you build your company, and then you get Cody Rhodes, and then you get all these guys. Then you get Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy. They came at different times. Matt Hardy's been with AEW for about a year, but one of the most popular tag teams in wrestling history. Already, have lots of great tag teams. I mean, they have potential to have great matches with guys like Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, and then the Young Bucks and several other, top names in AEW. So I think that's a great signing by them because, I mean, you have people who haven't watched wrestling in forever, and then you start watching AEW, and you see the Hardy Boys who, haven't wrestled together in, a couple years as a tag team come back together, possibly having great matches and stuff. And then you got somebody like Paige Vanzant. Honestly, I don't really know much about UFC and stuff like that, but I feel like it has potential to be a really good signing because you look at it. I mean, WWE has Ronda Rousey. You kind of, and they have Brock Lesnar, two people who's had MMA background, who have switched to wrestlers. you kind of want to see that, and you want to see, AEW, they're trying to hope to get that, MMA background megastar like WWE has, Rousey and Lesnar. If you can get even half as big of a star as Rousey or Lesnar, in my opinion, I think AEW would, easily succeed in that signing, because they kind of lack like the star power in women's wrestling compared to like, male wrestlers like Jericho and, Kenny Omega and people like that, Daniel Bryan. But to me, I feel like both of those signings were really, really good. I mean, this past Wednesday, there was just a ton of stuff on AEW. I mean, there was multiple, people turning on one another. John Moxley, who was Dean Ambrose in WWE. It was announced that John Moxley and Daniel Bryan are going to be a tag team, which is, kind of interesting. And then it was announced that the Inner Circle broke up. Jericho turned on the Inner Circle, and the new name is the Jericho Appreciation Society, which to me, I feel like that name is just kind of weird. I don't really like the name, but it's kind of interesting because, Jericho turning on the Inner Circle, that was the main faction, when AEW first started. So it was kind of surprising to split them up, and especially, have Jericho, turn on them, and not like a guy like maybe Sammy Guevara or, Centeno and Ortiz. To me, it's one of those situations where you might not really agree with the booking decision, but you're kind of intrigued for it. I don't know. I still kind of have mixed feelings about that. I mean, there was multiple other, turns like I mentioned. So you have any thoughts on the Inner Circle breaking up or anything like that?
It's a better script than Vince McMahon. I will say that. Because you look at Vince McMahon, he will change the script 30 minutes before they go live. And people are scrambling around, what the hell do I do? Because Vince McMahon is the creative mind. He is the director. And I think that it's time for Stephanie McMahon and Hunter to take over, because you look at, you might not agree with some of the writing, but hey, at least they have storylines that go for weeks, and they don't do the same matches 2, 3, 4 times over. We saw that match. Why the hell is it on pay-per-view? You understand what I mean? So for me, I think it's a good move, because AEW at least has a direction. They actually have writers. They have, a script. Vince McMahon is the script.
Yeah, and it's like with WWE, you look at it, like you said, they'll have matches on a pay-per-view, and then the next night on Monday Night Raw, they're having the same exact match for, a rematch for whatever reason. AEW, I feel the one thing I like about them is that even though the storylines might not be good at times, sometimes they are good. Like, CM Punk and MJF, that storyline was really, really good. It looks like that one is ending. They do not have, people fight each other 3 or 4 times in a feud. You look at years ago, Charlotte and Sasha Banks, I believe their feud started in SummerSlam in August, and it ended, I think it was TLC in December, like a 5-month feud. I mean, they've fought so many times. But with AEW, you have a long feud. They're able to drag it out, but it still intrigues you and still makes it intriguing to watch, to see how the storyline may go and the feud may go, despite not having, 3 or 4 matches in the feud. Like you look at it, MJF and Chris Jericho, their feud lasted a while, but the way they made it, it was entertaining. It was a great storyline, and they did not fight many times at all. So I completely agree, with that, as in the booking, with AEW, it's much better than WWE. I mean, WWE's booking decisions recently have just been absolutely horrendous. That's a big reason why I just can't really get into it, like I used to. For example, look at Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. We've seen this feud build up ever since SummerSlam, and now they're going to be fighting at WrestleMania. So, I mean, that's over a half a year feud just between those two guys, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And, it's crazy because when you look at, WrestleMania, and, there's so many big, storylines, and not storylines, but just big news in different sports. WrestleMania is coming up in a couple of weeks. That's basically like the Super Bowl of wrestling. It's announced that baseball is returning. In my opinion, I don't really care. I'm not a big baseball guy like I used to be. The NBA playoffs are going to come up in the next month or so. March Madness starts next week, and the NFL free agency starts, next week. But, there's already been some major moves in the NFL. One is Khalil Mack being traded to the Chargers. This one came at an absolutely nowhere. There was talks about Carson Wentz. There was, some rumblings about Russell Wilson possibly being dealt. Some people thought Rodgers could have possibly stayed in Green Bay. Those, they're all kind of a little bit shocking, but this one just was nowhere. It's like an RKO, came out of literally nowhere. Nobody thought it was going to happen. But, he was traded to the LA Chargers for a second-round pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick. This makes zero sense. The Chicago Bears head coach is a defensive-minded coach. Why would you not want a top 5, top 3 maybe, best defensive player in the NFL in Khalil Mack? He's not one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's one of the best players in general in the NFL. And you trade him for a second-round pick this year. That is crazy. You have one of the best centers in the NFL, and Corey Lindsley. In my opinion, that was still the best signing of last season. That was phenomenal by them. They have great offensive linemen. They had Slater this past season, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Justin Herbert. In my opinion, probably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in Herbert. And then you look at all this. You re-sign Mike Williams. You have a chance to get a guy like Chris Olave from Ohio State. You still have Keenan Allen, who, despite him getting up there in age, is still a reliable receiver in the NFL. I know you're playing in the AFC West and, with, the Broncos. We're getting a lot later with Russell Wilson and the Chiefs. But you look at this Chargers team, I don't think they're not only threats to win the AFC West, I think they're threats to win the AFC in general, because this team and, Justin Herbert's first full season starting nearly went to the playoffs. They should have went to the playoffs, but their coach screwed up. Instead of, tying, they ended up losing. If they would have tied, obviously would have went to the playoffs. This Chargers team is going to be so fun to watch. I'm excited for it. And this trade elevates the Chargers, who, in my opinion, I was already high on them heading into this year. So much they are going to be one team to watch out for this season.
This trade puts them over the top, right? You mentioned. You pair them with Bosa. Oh, my God. I'm scared now. And don't they have Melvin Ingram? Or not Melvin Ingram, but the linebacker Ingram?
I think he's a free agent, which I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe came back.
That's insane. Their defense is stacked. You just mentioned their offense. Corey Lindsley, I was sad when he departed from Green Bay because he was the best center in the league. There's no doubt about it. And you guys just re-signed Mike Williams. You guys got Justin Herbert. So I'm looking at the LA Chargers, and I'm saying they're going to be the team to beat going forward, because you look at the Rams. I think they're better than the Rams. I personally just think they are. But it's going to be the battle of LA. But in general, I'm shocked that this trade happened, because at first I thought it was fake news, because you scroll through Instagram and a lot of the times there's these sports pages, but they're fake, and they just put out fake news, and a lot of people draw to it because they're like, oh shit. And at first I scrolled and I said, no, bullshit. And then one of my sources posted, I said, oh, it's real. And I saw for how much, and I couldn't believe it, for so little. I would demand 2 first-round picks, a piece of your pie, and, give me some money on the side too. Give me some cap space too. But no, the Bears said, here, take this away from us for free. It was for nothing. A second-round pick, what the second round is all the people that from the first round, all their hype died. They fell slots, and now they're in the second round, you look at second round talent. Sure, there's some great names that have come over the years, but you look at the second round in general, you're stupid. And then, like you said, the Chargers have the first round pick. So not only did they get Khalil, oh my God, could you imagine your left tackle and right tackle? Sometimes the left tackle has it a little bit harder. You're like, oh man, we gotta send the halfback, to block. Oh no, who are you gonna block now? You pick your poison. Do you want to double team Mack and leave Bosa by himself, or do you want to double team Bosa and leave Mack by himself? There's been times when Khalil Mack has been questionable, with his motor, his cardio, but at the same time, now that you have 2 edge rushers that are just the best in the league, they got the best pass rush duo. They do. It's going to be a living hell. Do the Packers even play the Chargers? Watch We don't even play the Chargers ever. Watch this year, Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing the Chargers and get smashed. I guarantee it, because what left tackle is going to stop that? There's no. I mean, Joe Thomas, the great Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns. I think he's a good fit, but he's retired. I mean, you look around the league, David Bakhtiari. I think he could have a chance. But I mean, oh my God. I mean, if your left tackle is who was just playing in the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow's fucked. I mean, he's going to get killed. I mean, could you imagine? Oh my God. That's scary to think about. That really is scary to think about. So I think the Chargers, they have just put a stamp on the league. Oh my God. No.
And when you look at the Bengals and Chargers, for Christmas last year, I was able to go to the Bengals Chargers game. That was like the main thing I wanted for Christmas. I want to see Herbert against Burrow. I was able to go see it. Okay, Burrow was hurt, some, but I mean, we still lost by like 20 points. And that was when our offensive line wasn't good that game, but it wasn't the worst it was in this regular season. You add freaking Khalil Mack to the mix. I mean, Jonah Williams, our first-round pick from a couple years ago, missed the entire rookie year. His second year, he only played 10 games. This past season, he gave up 10 sacks. Every Bengal fan's like, oh, he's going to be good, all that. If he was drafted in the third or fourth round, Bengal fans would be wanting to look for a replacement. But since he was a first-round pick, they think he has potential. Jonah Williams has not proven to be a really good left tackle. Right tackle, nobody has any idea who's going to be a right tackle. I'm so glad the Bengals played the Chargers last year instead of this year. Because if we played them this year, obviously we lost last year. If we played them this year, there's no freaking way we would beat them. I mean, that is insane. And
maybe the league should have vetoed the trade. They should have vetoed.
I mean, it would have been nice, but I mean, it makes ratings and Sunday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, everything like that for the AFC West. I mean, they're going to have so many games now, on prime time. But when you look at it, it's just so crazy. And you have one of the best safeties in the NFL in Derwin James. If he can stay healthy, it's like I've always said in today's NFL, you have to have a great defense. A great offense and a good defense to win. That's exactly what the Chargers have. In today's NFL, you do not win with a great defense and a good offense. You have to have a great offense and a good defense. The Chargers have a great offense. They have a great defense. I'm very excited to watch them this year. I'm so glad the Bengals do not have to play them. I do not want us playing them in the playoffs because I don't think it would end well for Cincinnati. And so it's still crazy to think because, like I said, some of these people, Russell Wilson, there was talks. Carson Wentz, there was talks. Other people, Deshaun Watson, he hasn't been traded. I don't think he has. I mean, he could have by the time this video is over with. But it's so crazy. All these guys are getting dealt. And Khalil Mack gets dealt for nothing. And, another trade, like I mentioned, was Carson Wentz. He basically got dealt for nothing either. So the Washington and the Colts swapped second-round picks. And Washington also gave Indianapolis a third-round pick this year and a third-round pick next year, but that can go to a second if Carson Wentz plays 70% of their snaps. Honestly, I know people are losing their mind about this. If you're Washington, we got freaking Carson Wentz while the Broncos got Russell Wilson, getting ticked off and jealous. I could totally get that. But at the same time, when you look at Washington, I at least applaud them for attempting to try to get better instead of looking at a team who has just sucked for years and doesn't even try. Like, to me, Carson Wentz at times looks really, really good. At other times, he looks absolutely horrendous. He's basically kind of like a upgrade over Taylor Heineke, but not as much as you would think. Like, Taylor Heineke's good at times, but he's so inconsistent. Just like Ryan Fitzpatrick, every single quarterback Washington's had the past couple of years, he's either great or horrible in a game. There's no in between. And you look at Carson Wentz, he wasn't as bad, in my opinion, this past year with Indianapolis. And they were still in playoff contention, at times this past year. They obviously were in the playoffs the year prior. But if Carson Wentz can just play average, like, I'm not saying he needs to throw for 300 a game and, 2 touchdowns, stuff like that. If he could just have turnover-free football, I honestly think this Washington team can win their division. I know I might sound crazy, But we all know every single year in and year out, the Cowboys underachieve. The Cowboys play great to begin the regular season. They lose their first playoff game, against the 49ers. They're going to underachieve. The Eagles, I know they went to the playoffs. They were very surprising. I don't think they're going to be as good. I'm still not sold on Jalen Hurts. The Giants, they have Daniel Jones. That's all you really need to say about him. He's not good at all. They have a horrible offensive line. But with Carson Wentz to Washington, you have pieces like Curtis Samuel, who's coming back, from injury this past year. Terry McLaurin, one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. You have a nice defense. I'm intrigued by this Washington team. I think they're capable of possibly winning their division. But, this still does not really help them a ton because I feel like next season, if Taylor Heineke was their quarterback, they could possibly contend for the NFC East anyway. But this move does not elevate them like Khalil Mack going to the Chargers. This is not a championship move. This is a move to possibly help you win your own division, and that's basically it.
What scares me about this is we all know FedEx Field, right? FedEx Field is the worst stadium in the league. Let's go back on the history of injuries that have happened on FedEx Field. I know two that come to mind. Robert Griffin III blew his knee out, and Alex Smith broke his leg and almost had to have not so good things done to his leg. You get where I'm coming from. And that field scares me because you just saw what happened with the fans falling out the freaking rafters. I think if I was Carson Wentz, that would be my biggest fear is FedEx Field. That turf is dangerous. It's caused significant injuries, not just little nicks. These are significant career-ending injuries, my friend. And I just pray that Carson Wentz stays upright because he's had histories with ACLs. He's had histories with injuries. And you look at what happened to Odell Beckham Jr. in the Super Bowl. Just took a wrong step and bam, ACL, you're done, right? Look what happened to Robert Griffin III. One wrong step, bam, you're done. And they were winning that game against Seattle, by the way. Fucking hell. So I just hope that Carson Wentz, nothing bad happens. That field is the worst field in history, owned by the worst owner in history. I have nothing good or nice to say about the Washington franchise. I think they should get demolished. They should be gone because it's a shame to the league to have them in the NFL. And their name was a shame as well. The Redskins. I know it. We can't say it anymore, but I'm going to say it. The Redskins. That's the worst name in NFL history. These people, what the hell? Why are you a team still? The Commanders? We should have got rid of them and gave a city like St. Louis their football team back because they deserve it. Washington does not deserve a football team. You look at what they've done. It's sick and it's gross because they can't even maintain their own stadium. They have fans falling out of the rafters. Are you kidding me? That upsets me. They pay top dollar to sit at your stadium and they fall. Could you imagine someone died from that? It could happen. Come on. My blood pressure's through the roof talking about these people because the owner should not be the owner and they should not have a franchise ultimately. And I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but hey, I don't care because that's how I feel because the Washington team is a disgrace. And I'll leave it at that. I don't like talking about Washington. For so many years, they've gotten away with it. And it ticks me off till this day. I just cannot stand it. And every time Aaron Rodgers goes to that field too, I pray to God he does not take one wrong step and he has a career-ending leg injury. Because God knows, I think we come to Washington this year too. If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in Washington, my friend, I don't know. I might have a boycott against that team because they're responsible for Alex Smith almost, not having such good things done to his leg and Robert Griffin III. And then Robert Griffin III is coming out with a film. Have you seen that? It's called Surviving Washington. He was sexually harassed at Washington. That's real. And I cannot stand it. I will not stand for it.
And, you also look at Washington, something else with their field. I think, their sewer line busted during the game or something like that. And it's like time after time, just everything messes up for them. And they have a chance to, fix stuff, but they don't. I mean, the, changing your name and stuff like that. The Commanders. I mean, just like honestly, when you think about it, their name change is one of the least things. When you have people falling out of the stands, when you have like sewer lines busting, I think multiple times throughout the season, when you have the worst turf in the NFL, and when you're Carson Wentz, I feel like, when you have this significant injury like it did years ago, it's one of those situations. It's like you always have that, voice in the back of your head, or that feeling in the back of your head that could possibly happen again, especially when you're playing on that horrible field. Like, to me, if I was Carson Wentz, I mean, I would be freaking out. And like, I just don't get how, I just cannot imagine like playing a game and all of a sudden, like, holy crap, like I might mess up my, knee or something like that. And it's crazy. And I don't know. Like, it's crazy to me how bad the Washington franchise is. But, they get Wentz. It should be interesting to see how that plays out this year. And, obviously, switching to another quarterback, we'll go ahead and talk about, the Packers here and Rodgers. The Packers, Rodgers stays in Green Bay. Really smart decision by Rodgers, staying in Green Bay. There's no really competition in the NFC North compared to the AFC West, if you're playing against the Chargers or the Chiefs or the Raiders. I feel like this was the best decision for Rodgers. And when you look at the NFC quarterbacks, I mean, who does he have to go against? Russell Wilson's gone. I mean, there's a significant gap between Aaron Rodgers and the next best quarterback in NFC. The AFC West has a better trio of quarterbacks than the NFC. Like, that is crazy to me. The third best quarterback in NFC, like when you start thinking about it, like Kyler Murray's probably up there, and that tells you how bad it is. That's crazy. But I feel like this was definitely the best decision for Rodgers, because let's say if he would have went to another team and not won a championship, holy crap, that would have destroyed his legacy a ton. But Rodgers stays in Green Bay. Ultimately, I feel like that was the best decision for Rodgers, and I think they have a good chance to go to the Super Bowl, because with Russell Wilson being gone, with Tom Brady being gone, and some of these other people, leaving, I really don't think there might be a team or two in the NFC. There's the Rams, but Matthew Stafford's very inconsistent. I mean, it's crazy, but I feel like Green Bay is set for a couple more years, and if they have I feel like we've said it the past couple of years, like it's now or never for the Packers to win with Rodgers. But now, with his contract he signed, it literally is now or never. So it'll be interesting to see how Green Bay plays. And I know you have a lot to say, being a Packers fan.
Yeah. Oh, man. Where do I get started? After just having my rant about Washington, I'm happy Aaron Rodgers back. When I saw it, my heart just settled. I was very at peace with that, because I would have been happy if he signed a 1-year contract for $50-60 million. He signed a 4-year, $200 million contract, $153 million guaranteed with incentives. I'm happy. The band's back together. You got Rodgers, David Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, and you bring back a couple pieces to the puzzle. I think we have a straight shot to the Super Bowl. You look at all the quarterbacks that have beaten Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game, right? They're not better than him. Russell Wilson wasn't better than him. Matt Ryan wasn't better than him. Jimmy Garoppolo sure as hell wasn't better than him. So you look at the quarterback crop, like you said, who's the best quarterback in the NFC? Aaron Rodgers. Who else? Kyler Murray. I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about Kirk Cousins. I'm not worried about Jameis Winston. Scares me if he goes to the AFC with Tomlin. That's concerning. But you look at the quarterback crop, it should be a clear shot. There is no excuse for the Packers this year, especially if they get home field advantage one more time and they blow it. Then I will officially say Aaron Rodgers is the James Harden in playoffs, because, he's done some great things, but then again, his touchdown interception ratio in the regular season versus the playoffs, it's night and day difference. I mean, it's two different guys. So I think Aaron Rodgers did the right thing by coming back, because like you said, if he went to the Broncos and didn't win a Super Bowl like Peyton Manning, it would have hurt him more. than if he stayed in Green Bay and didn't win another one or even went back to another one. Another reason I think Aaron Rodgers stayed, believe it or not, is because he's looking at the Green Bay legacy, right? When you think Green Bay, you think Bart Starr. You think Brett Favre. You think Aaron Rodgers. So if he left, that would have been heartbreaking, not only to the Packer fans, but I think to himself as well. Because, you know, he's had so many experiences with Bart Starr, and God rest his soul. And I'm sure he thought about those. And when you see a Bart Starr, you see a Brett Favre. When you think, you don't think about Brett Favre on the Vikings or the Falcons. You think of him on the Packers. So I think that's another reason why Aaron Rodgers stayed. He said, this is more of a legacy move. And Aaron Rodgers is the last quarterback in the NFL that I know that wears the single chin strap like Brett Favre, like the old style. Like, he's iconic for that. Like, the look, the feeling, it's Green Bay all the way. And I just feel like if he went to San Francisco after he just lost to them, it would have tarnished his legacy, even though he's from the Bay Area. It would have been the Kevin Durant of the NFL. And I'm happy he stuck with his guns. He went back to Green Bay. And why wouldn't you? They finished 13-3 the past 3 seasons under Matt LaFleur. You have 9 regular season losses. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, we have never seen domination like this from a regular season team. I mean, you look at it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a 2-time league MVP. Reigning, I should say. 4-time league MVP, 2-time reigning league MVP, excuse me. I just think that if they don't win it this year, at least the NFC Championship game, if you can't get past that, it's over.
And, you know, when you look at, you know, the NFC, the only teams that come to mind to me are the Rams and the Cowboys for competition. The other best quarterbacks in the NFC, aside from Rodgers, are, you know, not in order, you know, Prescott, Kyler Murray, Stafford. Stafford can be really good at times. Other times he's horrendous. Like, he's absolutely horrible. But when you look at it, when it comes to consistency, I mean, Rodgers is going to be the best quarterback in NFC without a doubt. Prescott and Kyler Murray, both those guys are very inconsistent. And there's just no competition really in the NFC much compared to the AFC. I mean, the AFC West, I mean, when you have the Broncos, you know, when you have the, you know, Chiefs, when you have the Chargers, those are some amazing teams. That's just in one division. When you look at other teams outside that, I mean, when you have the Bengals, the Steelers, you know, the Bills, it's crazy that, I mean, there was even really a discussion that Rodgers was going to leave for an AFC team. It was just too risky. And it was too risky to leave in the first place. Because let's say even if he goes to another team and he wins the Super Bowl, I mean, you don't want to take that risk. You know, you're better off just staying. Because I don't know. I feel like if he would have left and not win a Super Bowl, that would have hurt his legacy a ton. And like you mentioned, you know, if he would have went to San Francisco, even if he would have won a ring with the 49ers, I feel like, in my opinion, I think that would have hurt his legacy a bit, kind of like, you know, Durant. You know, he couldn't beat a team, so he would join him. Obviously, he does, and he stays with Green Bay. I feel like that's the best decision for Rodgers. And I feel like, once again, heading into another NFL offseason, the Packers should be pretty much, you know, probably the favorites in the NFC as we head into another offseason.
Yeah, and another thing that's very interesting, people don't read between the lines, but Aaron Rodgers was engaged to Shailene Woodley, right? Called it off. Aaron Rodgers was linked to Denver in the first place because Shailene Woodley lived in Denver. Then guess what? They split, and then all of a sudden, Denver's off the table. You don't think that played a part in it? Because I sure as hell think it did. So I think he looked at it and he said, wow, you know, this relationship didn't work out. And I'm going to stay in Green Bay because I for sure think that if him and Shailene Woodley got married and they put a ring on it, he would have been in Denver. I think so. But it fell through. So that's why I think he stayed in Green Bay.
And, you know, obviously Rodgers, you know, is not going to Denver, but I mean, there's another quarterback that goes to Denver that just absolutely shocks the NFL world. That's Russell Wilson going to the Denver Broncos. I am so freaking excited for this, deal. Wilson going to Denver. Russell Wilson has been one of my favorite players ever since he's entered the NFL. He's been one of my favorite players. He's been one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. He's one of the best quarterbacks the past decade or so. And then you look at Denver. Denver, to me, I feel like has the pieces. I've been high on them for years. I mean, I was so high on them to the point it was stupid. In 2020 season, I picked Drew Lock as my MVP. It was ridiculous. It was stupid. But I've been so high on the Broncos because I feel like if they could just had not even a great quarterback, just a good quarterback, they could have been contenders in the AFC. And the fact that you get a great quarterback, a for sure Hall of Famer, a top 5 quarterback the past decade, a quarterback who's won a Super Bowl before, and Russell Wilson. When you have Russell Wilson and when you have a backfield, led by a guy who's coming off his rookie year, Javonte Williams, who has a very promising career, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler. They did trade Noah Fant, but they still have Albert O out of Missouri, who's a very promising tight end. When you have, Justin Simmons, one of the best safeties in the NFL, you have a, corner, and this past year was a rookie, and Patrick Surtain, who only allowed, I believe, 3 yards to Jamar Chase when the Bengals played him. Like, this team has tons of pieces, even before you add Russell Wilson to the mix. This is why I was so high on Denver, because they have all of these young, talented guys. Every single player I mentioned, for the most part, not including Russell Wilson, except for Justin Simmons, I believe all those guys are on rookie contracts, which is just absolutely mind-boggling. They have so much young talent. Everybody talks, let's say, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, the Bengals, they might have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. But when it comes to, depth at wide receiver, you can make a legitimate case that the Broncos are the best wide receiver core in the NFL. Add that with a top 5, top 6 quarterback who's won a Super Bowl before. I am so freaking excited for this. Like, this is a match made in heaven for Denver. I mean, and there's rumors they could possibly be going after, Bobby Wagner. Obviously, he's won a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson in Seattle. Linebacker, is one of the issues that the Broncos could still fix. You add Bobby Wagner to the equation, who's also another Hall of Famer. And there's talks, Von Miller, he might be open to come back to Denver. That was before the Russell Wilson trade even happened. I mean, it is crazy to me. I might sound crazy saying this, but since I've been on the Denver hype train for so long when nobody else was, and I've been a fan of Russell Wilson forever, I'll just go ahead and say it. The Broncos will be in a Super Bowl this season. I really feel confident saying that. When you have a great team like Denver and all those guys I mentioned who they needed that quarterback for years, and they finally get it. And Russell Wilson, yeah, he probably had the worst season of his career last year, but a big reason of that was because, they were hurt. And when you look at Denver, lots of people say Seattle won this trade. I don't know how they did. I mean, Denver got Russell Wilson in a 4th-round pick. Seattle acquired Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 5th-round pick. If the Broncos win a Super Bowl, that's a guarantee the Broncos win that trade. I feel like they're 100% capable of winning the Super Bowl, despite being in a very tough division in the AFC West. That also has the Chiefs and the Chargers that we already talked about earlier. But it's so interesting and so exciting to see Wilson to this Broncos team, because I've just wanted Broncos to have a quarterback forever. I want to see them do good. I'm not a Broncos fan, but I just want to see them do good because I've picked them to be good for a very long time. And when you look at it, there's not many teams, in my opinion, that can really compete with Denver. Obviously, the Chargers and Chiefs, them being in the same division. But aside from that, you look at the AFC, I don't think the Bills can compete with the Broncos. I don't think the Steelers can, unless they get like a great quarterback or something. I think the Bengals can, but I'm taking the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I know it's an early prediction, but I feel confident saying it. I cannot wait to see this Broncos team this year. I am so freaking excited for this move.
I think it's a great move. I think for both sides, right? Denver finally has their answer at quarterback after Peyton Manning's departure about 6-7 years ago. You look at Seattle, I think Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson's relationship was at the end. I think it was time for them to divorce. Just like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, it was time. Just like Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy, it was time. And I think that in regards to Russell Wilson, he will have great success in Denver because he's a once-in-a-lifetime generational talent. I mean, you look at Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Russell Wilson as dual athletes. We don't see that often. And I think Russell Wilson will go to a Super Bowl. Not win one, but I think he'll definitely go to a Super Bowl in his time in Denver. I would love to see Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Burrow. Okay. That is what I want. But at the end, I think John Elway did a phenomenal job recruiting Russell Wilson. I'm sure that was a process. I think they're willing to spend money. We've seen it before. When they spent money on that defense, TJ Ward, they got Champ Bailey, they got all these guys. And I think they even got DeMarcus Ware at one point. I think that they're willing to spend the money. And I think they're going to go out, recruit Bobby Wagner, because obviously, like you said, he has chemistry with Russ. And I think that they're going to make a splash in that division. Now, obviously, like you said, you got Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. It's a tough call. But I think that in the division games, they'll split one apiece. You know what I mean? They'll one win each. That will give them a feeling of, okay, what this team will be like in playoff competition. Because a lot of times that's what you're doing. It's a feeling out process. Okay, let them get one, but we'll come back, we'll watch some tape, make adjustments. And I think that's interesting that they have really three of the best quarterbacks in that division. You got Herbert, Mahomes, and Wilson. I mean, you got the three top quarterbacks, other than Rodgers in the lonely NFC. But I think that it's a new generation. It's so weird to think about. Drew Brees is retired. Ben Roethlisberger's retired. Phillip Rivers retired. Eli, Peyton, Aaron was about to retire, but he didn't. I mean, man, it's so strange. You grew up with these big names, and they're all retiring. Look at Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Tim Tebow. I mean, you think of a franchise quarterback, and you think they're going to be there forever, and then when they're not, it's so weird. And I'm sure that a lot of people experience that. And I'm just happy that Aaron Rodgers is here at least one more year. We can for sure say one more year. He could say, I don't want to come back after this and opt out of the contract. It's very possible. But at least this is for sure the last dance, because I'll share something with the audience. I was planning on going to Lambeau Field because I thought, wow, this is it. This is the last dance. This is the last time I'll ever see Rodgers. But then, obviously, there was a financial struggle because I pay for my own apartment. I pay my own bills, and the money wasn't there. And I said, shoot, I just missed out on seeing Aaron Rodgers in real life. Like, it's over. Like, that dream is shut. But he's coming back for one more year. I'm about to move in with roommates, so I'm going to set aside a lot of money for Green Bay. You watch. I'm going to be in Lambeau just to see Aaron in real life. That's all I want. That's all I want. I mean, before I leave this earth, I have to go see Aaron Rodgers in person at Lambeau Field. So I'm happy that that dream is still alive. That's all I can say. But Russell Wilson, Denver, they won the trade.
I mean, that'd be super cool, going to see Rodgers play in Lambeau Field. Obviously me and my dad are big-time Bengal fans, but my mom is a big Packers fan. We've talked about that'd be so cool to see, a game at Lambeau Field. That's like a bucket list dream because, I mean, it's so hard to get tickets and everything. And, I mean, regardless of who you see the Packers play, I mean, that's like an amazing game to see. One of the most, storied, fields in NFL history, one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in NFL history. It'd be super, super cool to see any game, Rodgers would play at Lambeau Field. And, with Rodgers staying in Green Bay, Carson Wentz going to Washington, Russell Wilson going to Denver, there's still some decent quarterbacks on the free agency market or possibly, in trade rumors. Some of these quarterbacks are, Jameis Winston, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson, which honestly, I still don't really know if he'll get traded. I mean, he might, but it's just a matter of how, the situation comes out today. Teddy Bridgewater, Fitzpatrick, and Trubisky. And to me, when I look at some of these quarterbacks like Derek Carr, I've said this since last July. I'm going to continue to say it. Derek Carr, I feel like if he is not with the Raiders this upcoming season, he's going to be with the Steelers. It makes so much sense. Why would the Raiders even compete in the AFC West? I know they made the playoffs this past year, but I still don't know how they made the playoffs when you have literally when you have three other quarterbacks in your division who are a better three quarterbacks in an entire conference in the NFC. Don't even compete. Just go ahead and trade Derek Carr to get some draft capital for a rebuilding team. I feel like that would be smart because, honestly, the fact that Pittsburgh made the playoffs this past year, despite Roethlisberger being horrible, really proves how good Pittsburgh is. And then when you look at Derek Carr to the mix, who probably had his best season ever this past year, you put him in the Steelers, I feel like they could possibly be Super Bowl contenders. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's another one. I think he goes to the Colts. I feel like that's a kind of not a for sure thing, but I think it's probably likely to happen. Garoppolo, he'll probably get cut, saves the 49ers some money. Then also Jameis Winston. To me, at first I thought Jameis Winston could possibly stay with the Saints, but I feel like, with Tom Brady retiring and, Jameis Winston already having, familiarity with Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich, you look at Jameis Winston's 2019 season, with the Buccaneers. It was one of the most underrated seasons in NFL history, but it's never talked about that because he threw so many interceptions. He threw for over 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. He did have over 30 interceptions, but over half of those picks were drops. Throwing over 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards in your first year with a brand new head coach and a brand new offense coordinator is very, very impressive. The Buccaneers just franchise tagged Chris Godwin the other day. If you had Jameis Winston, who was much better than people realized in the 2019 season, to Tampa Bay, they are still the favorites in the NFC South. But I don't see him going to the Saints because the Saints have no money cap space. Sean Payton is retired. They have a defensive-minded coach now in Dennis Allen. And, I feel like Winston, in my opinion, I feel like the top team for Winston is 100% the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, him going back to his team that drafted him first overall years ago. You also mentioned the Steelers for Winston. I feel like that's a possibility there. Couple other quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater, I wouldn't be surprised if we went to the Dolphins to kind of give a good backup to Miami. Bridgewater is from the Miami area. It makes a lot of sense. We saw this happen this past year where the Dolphins had Jacoby Brissett, a guy who's played around the league for quite some time. And it could be a nice, backup in case Tua, struggles or if he goes down. I think Bridgewater to Miami. Fitzpatrick, who knows? Maybe he ends up retiring. And then Mitchell Trubisky, I think he goes to the Bills. I think it makes so much sense. I was talking on the video the other day. The Bills with him, being in the Bills this past season, obviously Trubisky going to the Giants. Trubisky going to the Giants, their new head coach is Brian Daboll, formerly the offense coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. They already have a connection there because Trubisky was with Buffalo last season. And in my opinion, I don't think Daniel Jones is set in stone starter for the Giants. We could possibly see Trubisky start some point for the Giants this upcoming year. But I'm saying it for a couple weeks now. I think Trubisky to the Giants makes a lot of sense. So I would say Trubisky to the Giants, Bridgewater to the Dolphins, Winston goes back to the Buccaneers, Garoppolo to the Colts, Carr to the Steelers. Out of all those ones, I feel the most confident one, I would probably say Garoppolo to the Colts because, obviously the 49ers are not going to keep his salary, and the Colts desperately need a quarterback. But, we've already seen these crazy, news and headlines and everything with quarterbacks, Wilson going to Denver, Rodgers staying Green Bay. So, there might be some, more crazy madness with quarterbacks, but it should be very interesting to see what some of these quarterbacks end up going in free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I agree with you. Jimmy Garoppolo to the Indianapolis Colts is a good fit. I think I like Teddy Bridgewater to the Dolphins. So I think he's a good, viable backup and could give Jacoby Brissett some competition and could back up Tua very well because they have similar play styles. In regards to Jameis, I think he could stay with the Saints, but Sean Payton being gone, that could alter that decision. And they have Taysom Hill there, so I think he's a fan favorite for New Orleans. So I wouldn't be surprised if Taysom Hill gets a starting job and Jameis goes to the Steelers. I would love that. I don't know why I like that so much, but him and Mike Tomlin, I think that's a great duo because Mike Tomlin's a player's coach, and I think that's the kind of player Jameis is. Like he doesn't mesh well with a Bruce Arians. He meshes more with like a Mike. And I think in regards to Mitchell Trubisky, I could see him going back to the Bills. I just don't know. I just don't see him competing for a starting job. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's a toss-up in the air. Like he's always, if he doesn't get picked up in the offseason, he always will have his ringer on. And in the middle of the season, someone's hurt. He's going to get a call. Hey, Ryan, you're a veteran journeyman quarterback. Come fill in the spots because he can run an offense. He is very intelligent. I mean, he scored very well on this Wonderlic test. And Ryan Fitzpatrick can win you a game or two. And I always say that about that guy. I never doubt. I mean, he can lose you a game, but he can win you a game too when the beard gets crazy. But another guy that we failed to mention, and I feel like everyone's blackballed this guy from the league. What about Colin Kaepernick? He's better than all of those guys, and no one's calling Colin. And there's a video that just surfaced. He looks great, man. He looks great. I understand the national anthem, but that was years ago. You got to give this guy another shot. If Tim Tebow got a shot at tight end, a position he never even played. Are you kidding me? Colin Kaepernick took a team to the Super Bowl, and these guys don't even give him a shot. I mean, I would love for him to get a chance. Please, just someone give Colin Kaepernick a shot. It doesn't even have to be in the regular season, preseason. Get the guy in camp, for fuck's sake. I mean, give him a chance. I mean, he's better than all these guys. I can't believe it. I mean, we look at some quarterbacks in the league. Joe Webb, he plays wide receiver, and he's still considered a quarterback. You look at some of these guys. Josh McCown got a job at 40 years old. He was 40 years old when he got a quarterback job. Are you kidding me? Oh, my God. And I think Colin Kaepernick blows these guys out of the water.
With Tebow, I feel like, him going to Jacksonville last season, I still don't get what happened. I mean, obviously with the connection with Urban Meyer, but it's one of those situations or signings that's like it should have never happened in the first place. It doesn't make any sense. For Kaepernick, I feel like it's one of those situations where he's going to be wherever he signs. I just don't get why a team would sign him at this point. He hasn't played in forever. And when you look at, if he signs somewhere, there's going to be some people who are so happy about it, but there's also going to be some people who are so mad about it. Some of your fans, for your fan base, whoever it may be. I feel like he's more of probably a distraction than a solution. He hasn't played in forever, and I just don't get why a team would do it at this point. We're talking about a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, I could get it. But at this point, I mean, he hasn't played in 4 or 5 years, and he's not going to lead you to a Super Bowl, obviously. So I feel like unless he's capable of leading you to a Super Bowl, I know we did years ago. That's like 10 years ago. I don't see the point in signing him, especially a guy who hasn't played forever. And I don't know, like I just feel like your team is always going to be in like the media and everything like that, kind of like how Tebow was when this was Denver early on. Maybe in the media for like maybe good, bad reasons, whatever it may be. But I just don't see at this point why a team would sign Kaepernick when I think he's more of a distraction than a solution. Years ago, I could get it. At this point, I just don't see why a team would do it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's this one basketball player. I don't know his name. Maybe it's like Joe Johnson, but he was actually signed by the Celtics this season. He's like 40 years old, right? He played for the Celtics like a decade ago, but he's still kept in shape. And something happened with like the COVID list, and the Celtics literally had like no players. So they called the guy. He's 40 years old, and he was in great shape. I mean, the guy hasn't played in 10 years. 10 years this guy hasn't played. He came in, scored double-digit points. He helped the Celtics on, coming off the bench. I mean, I understand the NBA is a different kind of league. But for people to say, oh, well, he hasn't played in a couple of years, well, they just signed a 40-year-old guy off the street to come play for the Boston Celtics. So for people to say, oh, no. Well, bullshit, because why did the Celtics just do it to a 40-year-old guy who hasn't played in 10 years? 10 years he hasn't played. All of a sudden, he's starting on the Celtics. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So for all the fake news out there that, he hasn't played in a couple years. Hey, Joe Johnson, whatever his name is, didn't play for 10 years, and they called him. They called him. Can you believe that?
But I feel like with Kaepernick, though, like I understand that. I totally get that analogy. But I just feel like with signing him, people are going to, you're going to have that fan base that love it and have that fan base who hate it. And that's where I just don't think it's a smart idea. Because when you have a quarterback's the most important position on the field, not even debatable. Obviously, Kaepernick, I don't think would be a starting quarterback if he signed anywhere. He'd probably be like a top backup. But I don't know if that distraction and that media hype around it 24/7, just like with Tebow in Denver, is worth it for a guy who is not going to be an Aaron Rodgers, who is not going to be a Patrick Mahomes. And that's my point. I just don't get, I don't know, the risk of it. There's a far bigger risk than there is a reward on that. And I just don't know why any team would take that risk. I completely understand what you're saying, and I get that. The Joe Johnson analogy was a great point, but I just don't really know if a team will end up signing him. I mean, we have, Kaepernick and all these other guys, free agents, Fitzpatrick, who's getting up there in age, he could possibly retire. I mean, we're talking about all these quarterbacks, Wilson, him going to Denver, Rodgers staying. I mean, we've talked about, all the NFL moves, Carson Wentz going to Washington, Khalil Mack going to the Chargers. Also a tad bit about AEW with Paige Vanzant and Jeff Hardy signing with AEW. So, Tony, can you kind of tell some of the listeners where they can follow you on social?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I've mentioned it before, but my sports Instagram page was deleted. Copyright strikes. Dana White got me. I love you, Uncle Dana, man. He got me, though. He deleted my account. The UFC was not having it. So I only have my main Instagram now. It's Antonio W. Gazza. That's what I have. YouTube, I don't post much. I want to get back on that. So it's Tony GTV. And that's the only platforms I use. You will not catch me on Twitter. You will not catch me on Facebook. You will not catch me on TikTok. But Donald Trump just came out with his social media network, Truth. I'm on Truth Social. I think it's either Antonio Gazza or Antonio W. Gazza, but I'm on Trump's new Truth network, and it's tremendous. I mean, no more fake news, guys. And I know we're not supposed to get political, but you've seen what's going on in the country right now, and it's not so good. So I just want to promote Truth Network. It's better than Facebook, Twitter, better than Instagram. It's the truth. And to be honest, with so much fake news going on in the world today, it's really sad. I mean, I wanted to be a member of the media like ever since I was a little kid, but now I have a different view of it because a lot of it is bias. A lot of it is bought and paid off, like the New York Times. People buy articles in there. A lot of that journalism is purchased. So when number 45 talked about fake news and people said, oh, no, it's true. It's a lot of fake news out there, guys. So definitely want to promote that. But thank you so much for having me on your platform. It's a pleasure every time. I know the past couple of days we got scheduling that was messed up. But hey, thank you so much for working it out, and I'm glad we could do it, man.
Definitely glad you're able to, join the show today. Make sure to follow, Tony. I'll definitely put, the links in the description to follow him below. If you're new to the channel, if you've seen my videos before, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time on the Sports 300 Show.